Hey guys, as we know, the Nintendo Switch 2 was revealed recently, and according to several leaks about this console, it is supposedly going to be much more powerful than the base Switch. We're talking like 10 times as powerful, and I feel like this could definitely be very beneficial for backwards compatibility, since I feel like a lot of games, a lot of Switch 1 games could run much better on the Switch 2, and hopefully we'll get performance updates or like resolution or frame rate updates. And while a lot of games would just look a little better or would just run a little better, like games like Thousand Year Door could get that 4K update that was data mined and run in 60 FPS, probably with like 1080p. But even though there could be like games that already run well that could be kind of updated, there's like a decent amount of games, Nintendo published games specifically, that definitely would need a boost in power. Because while they still are good games and well polished for the most part, some of them do suffer from some performance issues that I've noticed, and that definitely is the case for some recent Switch games, especially like over the past year, but there are a few examples of like older Switch games that don't run as well, but that's what I wanted to discuss in this video. And before I get started, I just wanted to mention that I have a goal to hit 30,000 subscribers before the Switch 2 launches, and if I reach that goal, I will do a giveaway for a copy of the new Mario Kart game. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and you enjoy this content. But the first game that I wanted to discuss is Mario & Luigi Brothership, and while this game is pretty great in my opinion, one of my biggest issues with it is the fact that it didn't really run great at times. Like, there were definitely some problems, especially like on Ship-Shape Island, when you have like a lot going on towards the end of the game. The frame rate could dip quite a lot, and it could definitely get kind of annoying sometimes. So I really hope that gets a performance update on the Switch 2. Another thing is the loading screens. Like, I know that might not seem like a huge issue, but that could definitely add up when there's a lot of them, especially going into battles. That was probably my biggest, like, annoyance with, like, loading screens and everything. When you have games like Thousand Year Door that can load them in, like, almost seamlessly. Like, it definitely is a little annoying when you have to wait a few seconds to start a battle in Brothership. So I am really hoping they'll iron out these loading screens on the Switch 2. Like, I know, like, on other consoles with backwards compatibility, that's one thing they definitely improved, like, right out of the box. Like, when you use, like, backwards compatibility, like, it automatically improves the loading times. So I'm hoping that the Switch 2 will do that with a lot of games, and I feel like Brothership would definitely benefit from that. And another game is Princess Peach Showtime. I feel like it suffers from a lot of similar issues to Brothership, but in this case, it's like a little weirder because this game isn't as large of a scope as Brothership. It is much more smaller in scale, which makes it a bit weird. It also, like, looks a little blurry as well. The resolution isn't great from what I remember. It's been a while since I've played the game, but it definitely isn't one of the highest resolution Switch games. It looks good, it definitely does have a good art direction, but I feel like it could definitely be enhanced by some kind of update on the Switch 2. The loading screens are also there as well. I guess it's not as noticeable as Brothership because you don't have to go through like as many like different scene changes, but it still is somewhat noticeable. But yeah, I definitely think that game should get some kind of overhaul on the Switch 2. And the next one is pretty interesting, as this would need much more of an upgrade on the Switch 2 than these previous two games, and that is Pokemon Legends Arceus. I feel like out of all the Pokemon games on the Switch, this one is probably the most salvageable out of all of them. I don't want to get too much into the details about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because I've already discussed why I dislike those games, and part of the reason why is because of the performance, and I feel like it goes much farther beyond the performance in that game. And I feel like that would be like a whole full-on remaster to iron out all of its issues. But something like Pokemon Legends Arceus, like, that is already a well-designed game. It doesn't have problems with, like, level scaling and things. And it also, like, has a better visual identity than most of the Pokemon games on the Switch. I feel like an update that, like, improves how things are rendered, like, reduces, like, the pop-in, actually adds in higher res textures. I know that might be a bit hard to, like, add in, like, a ton of textures, but I'm pretty sure they would probably have, like, in their archive, like, higher res versions of the textures that they used in the game. And I don't know, I think, like, they could definitely put some higher resolution textures in the game. And then also fix some of the choppy animations as well. But I think it would definitely make a lot of sense, especially when Pokemon Legends Zaza is coming out soon. I think they could kind of help promote that game by having some kind of performance update slash kind of like Switch 2 overhaul update for Legends Arceus. I just think that would make a lot of sense. And yeah, I just think it would be pretty fitting for this game. I would say it definitely needs the least work out of any of the other Pokemon games, like Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet. That might be a little too much to try to kind of improve or overhaul, but Legends Arceus, I feel like they don't have to do quite as much here. So that's why I think they should do some kind of like Switch 2 update for this game. And the next one is actually two games, but these kind of fit together since they are both pretty similar and suffer from the same issues as well. And that is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and the Link's Awakening remake. These are beautiful games. I really like how they look. I really like the chibi, toy-like style of these games. I would say visually, they're definitely some of the most stylized and interesting looking games on the Switch. But the problem is that it suffers from a lot of frame drops that can definitely get pretty noticeable at times. And since these are action-adventure games, I feel like it definitely hurts it a bit more here than something like an RPG when you're just roaming around the overworld, like Mario & Luigi Brothership, and the frame rate dips a little bit, because the frame rate didn't really dip in battle in Brothership, it was mostly in the overworld. But for Echoes of Wisdom and Link's Awakening, I feel like it is a little more of an issue here. So I really hope it gets some kind of performance update. And maybe even for something like Link's Awakening, like something to remove the blur effect. I'm not sure if Echoes of Wisdom had that pronounced of a blur effect, but I think that would be nice to kind of decrease that effect, like with an update or something. But yeah. And the next game is Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. And out of all of the Dynasty Warriors style games on the Switch, this one seems to run the worst, I would say. I haven't played much of the Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, but from what I've heard, that actually runs at 1080p and 60 FPS. But Age of Calamity runs in 720p and an inconsistent 30 FPS. That 30 FPS can turn into 20 FPS sometimes when you have, like, very large groups of enemies, or you're doing, like, really complex attacks and things. But yeah, this game could definitely get pretty choppy at times. This is one of the few games where I've really noticed the frame rate drops. Like, for the others, they were just kind of but this one, it really was more of an issue for me than the others. So I'm really hoping it gets fixed. I don't think it's as likely that this game will get some kind of update on the Switch 2, because it did release all the way back in 2020. But I feel like running on the Switch 2, it might get some kind of performance boost. I'm hoping that, like, some games might automatically get some kind of performance boost when they're running on the Switch 2. So I am hoping that is the case for Age of Calamity. I'm not sure how it will work exactly, but I am just hoping that, like, if it's just running on the Switch 2, it will just, like, work a little better. And finally, we have the Xenoblade series. And I'm actually not kind of singling out a specific game here, I'm just mentioning the series as a whole, because I feel like all of them have somewhat of an issue. And it's not, like, the frame rate, because the frame rate is decently good, I would say, most of the time. I haven't really noticed that much of an issue. The problem is that the resolution can dip quite a lot in these games. Less so for Xenoblade 3, even though it can to some extent, but more so for Xenoblade 2 in Definitive Edition, or at least one Definitive Edition, since we're getting X soon. But there are instances where those games can just run at 540p docked, which is really low. Monolith Soft did incorporate a way to upscale these games by Xenoblade 3, which is pretty good, and Xenoblade 3 doesn't suffer as much from resolution dips as the previous two, but I still feel like all of them can suffer a little bit with resolution, and it definitely does look pretty blurry at times when you're in areas that has quite a lot going on. Like I said, Xenoblade 3 doesn't really suffer from it as much, but would definitely benefit from the performance of the Switch 2. So I'm really hoping that it will help the Xenoblade games and everything. I am a little concerned about X, like, releasing on the Switch 1 first. Even though from what we've seen in the trailers, it looks much better than, like, all the other Xenoblade games that released so far, I kinda wish that released on the Switch 2. Like, maybe even as, like, a game released shortly after launch, but I don't know. I'm just hoping, like, that game, along with the other Xenoblade games, gets some kind of boost in performance and resolution on the Switch 2. I think that would be nice. Like, at least have these games run in 1080p on the Switch 2, if not upscaled 4K. So I think that would be pretty nice. But yeah, anyways, those are the games that I think should get some kind of boost on the Switch 2 and would definitely benefit from it. And while games like Thousand Year Door would definitely look very good on the Switch 2, those are already quite polished when it comes to performance. I know some of them do run at 30 FPS, but they are at least consistent for the most part. But the games that I mentioned are definitely a little more inconsistent and have a few more issues that would definitely be nice if they were ironed out. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!